Hi everyone, welcome to the Cheryl Witha show. Have someone very young, very inspiring. He has an amazing story to tell, and he's going to talk to us about jigsaw puzzles, jigsaws, right? So I'm not going to talk very much more, and I want to invite the very inspiring young youth champion, author, social entrepreneur. There's a lot to add to this list actually. So Hamid, do join us.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hi everyone.
how are
Nice to be
you?
here. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm doing great. Lovely to be here.
So where are you right now? Tell us where you are right now.
Yeah, I'm at Smith, London. Yeah, so yeah, that's where I'm currently based in. Yeah,
Very, very far from home, isn't it? The weather is
yeah,
also very
yeah.
different,
Far,
correct?
far from home. Yeah, having to deal with the weather every moment, but I think the weather is getting better. So it's I think we are moving from spring to summer very soon. So I think I'm getting a little bit of vibes from the sun. So at times, there was a research I participated in, and they asked me like, what reminds you of home, and I say the sun. Because the sun you get from home basically is quite different. So sometimes we don't cherish what we have, but yeah, we are here. What would we do, basically?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely, definitely. Different, but different is sometimes good as well, isn't it? So
yeah,
tell us about your name. Is there a story behind your name? You have a
yeah.
very, very
Well,
interesting name.
yeah, probably there are no stories to the name, but I think sometimes names carry personal meanings. So when you look at
Correct.
Ahmed, Ahmed is like an Arabic word, and it means the praiseworthy. And when you look at the praiseworthy, like obviously, like maybe I've lived to that name, who knows? Or I'm probably, in the journey of living up to that name, being someone worthy of, praise. But again, I don't want to classify myself as someone who is worthy of all praises, basically. But yeah, I would gradually work my way through living a life that is worth celebrating. And when you look at Kayode itself, it's Yoruba, like, Kayode is, even when you look at the full meaning, you're like Oluwa Kayode, that's like a full meaning. It's like, God brought joy,
Mhm.
kind of, he brought joy. So, yeah, as much as, we go through our times at times, personally, as a human being, I don't think the name, is attached to this. It's just my personal philosophy. That I don't allow what goes on on the inside to affect somebody else. So if I'm going through, like, troubles or worries, sometimes I just smile. And the reason why I'm smiling is not because maybe I don't have things happening in my life or I don't have challenges that I'm going
Yes.
through, but I'm smiling because I'm just being grateful, because I don't want to allow what's on the inside, affect the interaction, that I have on the outside. And yeah, there are a few people I might, probably trust to have conversations with, to debrief myself of those worries. But yeah, I won't allow that to affect my mood or how I engage with people. And Alabi is just a surname, so I don't really have a deeper meaning to that, like, or,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's just something that has been carried over the years, and basically, so yeah, yeah, I mean, it's yeah, it has its own meaning. I don't want to go into that, but yeah, but yeah, those are the meanings, and I don't think I want to attach anything to those meanings based on what I do.
Yeah,
But yeah, the meanings are there, and I'm also living my life, basically.
that's lovely. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'm going to mention some names that I don't know whether I'm pronouncing it correctly because some of the names are Nigerian names, Nigerian
I know,
maybe
right?
states or So if I do, please correct me and apologize in advance.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's go back to childhood, right? Let's talk about like where you came from. What was it like growing up in Makoko? Is that correct?
yeah, yeah, Makoko, yeah, you're correct.
Makoko. What was it
Yeah,
like growing up? Can you describe to me if you're standing there right now, right? What does it look like? What surrounds you? What was the atmosphere like?
yeah, it's a beautiful place to be. I think, most people try to portray the oral part, the sad part, which is sometimes what sells on social media, or which is sometimes what shares on mainstream media. But I think it's a lovely place to be if you pay attention to, like, the good side. Though, yeah, people need support, people need help. But I think the joy of childhood, everybody have this joy of childhood, the joy of growing up, and I think I enjoy that joy, of childhood. I think, for me as well, while I was growing up, I don't have to worry about some things, because My dad actually provide those things for me, and my mom doesn't have to. I don't have to worry about the clothes to wear because my mom would also definitely like get me all of the best dresses, despite living there. And we have so many parents who live in such communities who are trying to just ensure their kids get the best, even if it's
Yeah.
difficult. And we also have some parents who are also struggling, just trying to walk through the journey. But the most important thing or beautiful thing is how children just live happily, and how people are living, sharing life together. And I could recall my friend Henry Anumudu would always say, like, sharing life Africa. And I'm like, just thinking about, sharing life, children just growing up and sharing life together. And I could recall, I would go with my brother, with my friends, we'll go back to, like, there's a dump site at the back of our house. And we'll go pick, bottles, we'll pick, spare parts of, like, maybe a machine, or maybe a video player. We're just playing with those things. I want to create things, want to make things happen. You see us, we are trying to like connect battery to create fans. You're trying to create boats with a carton. You're trying to build houses. You're trying, there's just that creativity. And without a teacher, children are creating things and making things happen. So children are living happily. You're wearing your pants, running across the street, playing street football. There's just those happiness and joy, joy that comes with sharing and just living together in those moments. And one thing that I used to say is, like, all child, all African child, probably in any slum or even in Nigeria or anywhere, they want to dream. And those are the dreams, creating things, making things happen. It's just that probably if there's somebody who see that potential and kind of like harness, those kind of potential,
Mhm.
what would have happened to those children, if they have the right access to support, education, and mentoring. If they have access to, the good school as well. I could recall my dad would pick me from the slum. Like, I go to a school in an estate in within that area. So I wasn't going to the school in Makoko. I was going to a school in another estate in Alagomeji. I would, trek there, so and when I go to that school, it was a Montessori school. And Montessori
Mhm.
school employs this kind of playway method to learn. So I would,
Yes.
learn all of this, playway method, learn different things using cone to build houses. But again, I'll come back home and, I'll be back to the streets, right? With my friends, and, playing together at the outside and playing street football. So yeah, there were so many things to be grateful and to be joyful about. Yeah, but that's like an aspect of that. But things started to go wrong, when I was 7, I lost my mom. So and after
Mm.
a while, my dad became also unemployed at almost at the same time. And those challenges started to come, right? As at a very, very young age. And it was really, really terrible. We have to move from one slum to another slum. And during those moments, moving from one slum to another slum, living in like a, I mean, like, I couldn't fathom like where we were living, everybody in the family together in one room. You're like sharing, like, if I mean, I don't want to talk about, like, these are stories that sometimes people don't get to hear. And also,
Yeah.
like, you're walking in the streets, and sometimes I will sell spaghetti and sweets. I will hawk spaghetti and sweets, and I'll put the sweets, like, those are like small, all of the small candy. Then I
Mhm.
put those candy across my neck, then carry the spaghetti and then sell across the street. So whenever I move through the streets, I sell, I learned about like business early enough at that moment or at that point.
So that was your first taste of entrepreneurship,
Yeah, yes. And
right?
the interesting thing about at that time when I was selling, so I could recall, my stepmom at the time. I could recall saving like 10 naira every 10 naira every day. So I saved 10 naira for 30 days. So I had 300 naira. So when I had 300 naira at that point, so I went to buy like some group of, I bought some spaghetti for myself as well. As I was selling for the family, I was also selling my side of the spaghetti as well. So there was more drive to sell because I knew mine was there as well. So there was more drive to sell. So I was making like profit like times two of that amount. So, the capital.
Farida said, "Whoa, playing it smart." So,
Yeah,
so your intelligence started from very young,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it taught you skills, right? A lot of a lot of
yeah.
skills.
I mean, and the beautiful thing about those moments, right? The beautiful thing about it is, it's not just about hawking. It's about like, when you hawk and you're seeing people whose condition are worse than yours, right?
Yeah.
I saw people who, I mean, I can also afford 3 square meal, maybe one or two, but I saw people who couldn't even afford at all. I saw children who were not in school. I saw many, many, many of these challenges as I was going through the streets, and I saw like people that I refer as role models. They were playing street football. They weren't going anywhere. They weren't even in the university. And there were like so many thugs also on the street. Like, so you have a choice. It's either you go this way or you go that way. But one thing that happened during those moments as well is that my daddy actually picked me again from the slum community to a boarding school. So I did like my secondary education in a boarding school, even if it was stressful for him at some point to pay some of the school
That's
fees.
that's very interesting, right? So, would you say your parents played a really big role in ensuring that education was one of the most
They
important
were
things in your
they
life
were
at
part
that
of
point
the
of time?
jigsaw puzzle. I mean, I was a puzzle that is yet to be unraveled, right? And they
Yeah,
were part of that jigsaw puzzle. And when you look at the jigsaw itself, the jigsaw puzzle, it's a picture, right?
yeah,
And the picture is being detached in a kind of like jigsaws, and then you try to look at pieces and pieces of the picture, to form a particular picture, to form a whole. So, and there were many, many people playing their roles as the part of the puzzle as a piece, in my puzzle that is here to be unknown. Nobody knows that Ahmed is going to start an NGO someday. Nobody knows Ahmed is going to, travel to the UK to do his masters. Nobody
I
knows
know,
that
right?
people were just playing their parts in that piece that they don't know where it's going to lead to. They don't know, the full picture. They don't know how those picture will be completed. So when you look at Jigsaw, you also we need to look at Jigsaw and parenting and the role parenting plays in the Jigsaw, right? Everybody is playing their role. When you look at education itself, education is the process of acquiring skills, knowledge, attitude, and values in order to be able to contribute to a society, right? In order to contribute meaningfully to the society. But that's the goal, creating people who would contribute to the society, creating people, who would change their own circumstances, like, there are so many like benefits to education, but to achieve to get to that point,
Yeah,
that people are going to. There are many people who played their role in the piece of the puzzle, and then the parents are there playing their role. There's an NGO there sponsoring the child education. There's one family there who is interested in doing like extra lesson. There's an NGO, helping the child develop life skills.
yeah.
Everybody being a piece of part of the puzzle. So I would say like, for the parents, again, if you it's that responsibility, right, to be part of that puzzle. Even if at times my dad had to ox CDs in the street just to ensure that I pay my school fees. At time I have to like run around, look for family, get support from family just to like pay my school fees. So I could recall there was my dad aunt then who actually like was really really interested in my education, and I could recall when I couldn't pay my school fees in secondary school, I would run to her, and she would make some contribution. My dad would also make contribution from the Hawking, and then I'm able to go to school. I could recall there was a time I stayed out of school for like a whole academic term, and my brother also like stayed for a whole academic session. He wasn't in school. Like 1 year
Yeah.
was just there, not in school. So again, these were like some of those challenges that I was facing at those points. But at every point in time, at those moments, I knew that I don't want to be this person. I mean, I don't know where the intervention comes from. I don't know if where I have a kind of vision. I'm not sure, but
How,
one thing,
how old were you at that time? How old were
yeah,
you?
I was just 13 at
13.
this point. Yeah, I think I was 13. Yeah, 13 years old. And I could also recall that during so in Nigeria there is this secondary school education, 6 year secondary school education. So you do like first junior secondary school from JSS 1 to JSS 3. That is junior secondary school 1 to junior secondary school 3, and then you have a kind of break for like a couple of months. So I could recall during those break, my dad actually hustled it out, struggled it out to like send me to a computer school, and I was just 13. I was the youngest person in that computer school, really the most youngest person in that computer school. And I could recall picking like
Let's talk to your dad.
design, corel draws, typing. That was the time I created my first CV. I created my first CV at the age of 13.
You created your first?
My first CV at the age of 13. I wrote my
Mm.
first CV. I was like my education background. I'll be like junior
You
secondary school
wrote your first CV, guys. Hear that. Please
at
hear
the,
that.
at the age of
Hear
13. So
that.
yeah, so
13.
I wrote my first CV, and from that computer school, I was just curious as well. I would go on to search for things like Yeah, so like it's just so like inspiring to like learn. And I could record then, I would go on to like I learned a bit of software engineering, but I didn't pick it as a career later on.
Yeah.
But I learned a bit of computer engineering as well. So I would go install software, to help some adults. They call me small. They used to call me little man. So I'll go on to install softwares, rather than paying me. I say, you don't need to pay me, just give me food. So people would not pay me, they would just give me food. I'll go to business centers to work. I'm like, you don't need to pay me, just give me food. I'm fine. So, really, really
But you were
interesting.
hungry, not for, you were hungry to learn, right? At that point of
Yeah,
time.
I mean,
And I think
obviously,
you still are.
yeah, I mean, so I'm grateful for those moments. So sometimes when we help children now, to have those kind of education, to have access to that kind of skills, right? It helps them, it prepares them for the future. I never knew the computer training would be something that would prepare me for the future, because it made my life easy, to search
Yeah,
for
definitely.
information, to get some certain things. Like, there were some certain connection I'm able to make because I understood those basic things. I understood like, oh, I could type on word processing. I understood like I could do some design here. I understood I could search for information. I understood like, oh, when I need, like, I could recall when we did geography in my senior secondary school, I went to a cafe during the holiday. I went to a cafe. I didn't have the money, but the little money I got from like, here and there, I went to the cafe and I'm like, yeah, I want to search for a map. So I say, oh, map of Nigeria, map of this, map of that, and I was making connection, of those, maps. I mean, I didn't know how it happened, but I was, and I'll print my maps out, to make comparison that I just printed something out, from the cafe, really, really young, 13 years old boy who doesn't know anything, but just, living those life and being curious. Yeah, there were many other like stories to that, but I don't want to go into those detailed kind of, like, there were many sad stories within those period, within
Yeah,
those moments,
definitely.
within those time of like even trying to learn and trying to be on the streets, in the street where I could recall I went to like a business center to work, as a computer assistant. And a phone was stolen there, and they said I stole the phone, and I was slapped, nearly would have been mobbed, in the streets, if not for people who came out to say like, we know this boy is very gentle, he doesn't do such things. And
Mm,
that was why I know about the power of relationship and the power of people trusting you.
yeah.
People came all out and were like, we know this boy is easygoing. And if I had stolen something, I would have run away or somewhere, but I'm there, for God's sake. What would I like? So it was a difficult moment. And this is how some children in the slum probably have been, you know I've seen the other side of the slum, and they've been probably dealt with, probably in the slum way. They call it jungle justice. So many things have happened, and those things happen. And so, but again, I'm really grateful for those lessons, for seeing those challenges, for seeing those problems. And these are the problems that I've seen that allowed me to also be a piece, in the puzzle of another
Mm,
child, to just help them cross. I don't want to have everything, I tell people I don't want to own everything. I'm not interested in being a billionaire or having lots of money and loads of money. Yeah, those things are great. They might happen
yeah.
across the it happens, but I just want to be a jigsaw in the life of one child. I don't want to do everything. I don't want to be everything. I just want to be a jigsaw. I just want to be a piece in their own puzzle that is yet to be unraveled, right? There's some children there who are just finding somebody to be a piece, in their puzzle that they are trying to solve. And you help these children, you don't know where they are going to, you don't know, what's going to happen next, but you're just like supporting and being that piece in their puzzle, and those things takes time. And I think I'm inspired by my story, by my journey, by people
Yeah.
who stood with me, by people who said that I want to be a piece of your own puzzle. And I could recall when I was 14 years old, there was a program organized for vulnerable children by the MTN Foundation. So I was a beneficiary of that program, really, really young, 14 years old. And I could recall attending that program and learning about self-esteem and learning about personal leadership. And I could recall they told us, and also learning about HIV and AIDS. And they were like, self-esteem is the way you see yourself and the way you see the world, and the way you handle yourself and the way you handle the world. And I saw myself, I said, I can do things. Like since that day, nobody can tell me that, Ahmed, you don't know anything. Or, Ahmed, you can't
Mm,
do anything. I got that from immediately from the moment I had, like, is the way you see yourself and the way you see the world.
Definitely.
When you see the world positively, when you see the world that, oh, even if there are these challenges there, you can create things, you can make things happen. That program, that mentoring, that support I got from that program, it was a 7 days camp, residential camp. We were camped, we're eating good food and everything, MTN Foundation.
Mm,
So there were so many things those, such programs would do to you. That's a
yeah,
piece of the puzzle
that's the
that is
piece
just
of
to be
it.
unraveled.
Exactly.
I mean, if you ask the instructor then or the facilitator then that, do you know Ahmed would be this, they will say no. I don't even know them. I don't know where they are now. Even
Yeah.
the program doesn't exist anymore, right? But they've played their
But
part.
it's
They've played their
left a
role.
lasting impact on your life, right?
So
Lasting impact.
I'm always reminded of that program, wherever that, I could see myself as somebody who could do things, who could make things happen. In my secondary school, I wasn't even the best, students, or the best, but went I to the university to be one of the to be the best student, in my department. And these were these things that I carried on. I got
Mhm.
a university scholarship. My dad, aunt, and his husband were like willing to even sponsor. They sponsored throughout like my university education, even despite getting the scholarship. So those were like the kind of, journey and experiences, and how, so a program, could change your life, right? There's this like, how
Yeah.
just hearing, and I could recall advocacy for HIV and AIDS, and I was just 14, right? I would go on to organize seminars to tell people about HIV and AIDS, to just, talk about the prevention. I could recall, there was an event I attended then, and the first lady was there
Mm.
of Lagos State. So yeah, the governor then, I was 14. Yeah, the first lady was there. In fact, I had a cover on the newspaper. I don't know if I can even see that newspaper now, but they were like, yeah, who wants to talk about, HIV and AIDS, and speak about it? And I said, yes, I want to talk. So I came out, pick up the mic, and I was talking about it, and I got a picture with the first lady. Got
So
like
at 14 years old, you went in front of all these people and spoke
yeah,
about HIV
yeah,
AIDS. And
yeah.
what gave you that confidence at that age?
I mean, I didn't know. I just want to share, basically.
Yeah, you didn't think of it as you're
Yeah,
performing or you're standing, or you just like,
I
okay, I want
didn't.
to
I
share
mean,
this
I'm just like,
information.
yeah, I know these things. Ahmed, why don't you share? Why don't you talk about it, right? Came all out to talk about it. So, yeah, I would say I'm probably one of those outgoing young kid. But again, it doesn't mean people who don't share to don't know those things. But
Yeah,
yeah,
different. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it was an opportunity for me to share, and I got the picture. If I had the picture now, is spoiled. Like, got a picture of the first lady then. Got featured in a Guardian newspaper, because I was interviewed even after that moment, so after that point. So and that would have probably been my first taste of, like, getting a secondary education scholarship, because I could recall, like, they were like, oh, there was a promise. I was promised a scholarship, but I didn't get any of that. But it
mm,
didn't even stop me from still, pushing, from, living that life, from, just upping one person cross. So I would say, like, my access to education was my lifeline, right? Education, you know
saved you.
yeah, saved me. He gave me that opportunity to do things. He gave me that. So when people probably see, like,
Yeah,
all sometimes what children need is that basic education, right? Is that
correct.
education, and sometimes what people also need is people who actually also give them courage. So sometimes courage is not, it's not internal. It's not something you find on the inside. It's because somebody have your back. Sometimes that's courage, and that's why you go on to do
Yeah.
amazing things.
Because
One
you knew
of
someone was rooting for you. One person.
Exactly,
You just need one person to root for
exactly. I
you.
mean, human beings. When you look at the human nature, human beings, we are built we are built to support each other.
Mm.
And when you do amazing things, the people who help you are proud of you, right? And then you also go on to do things because somebody is like watching out for you, because
Yeah,
there's somebody there who would say, Ahmed, well done. Those well done we get from our parents, those well done we get from our loved ones. Why do we feel great when we graduate from the uni, or when we
yeah,
do something amazing? Because our loved ones, we cherish us. They will come there to clap for us, and that's why we're going to do amazing things for ourselves and for
yeah.
people who we love. So those are the things. There's an hormone is released in our body, that it's called chemical kind of love, this oxytocin, hormone
Oxytocin, yes,
that,
oxytocin,
that you
yes.
get from this chemical love that you get, because you know that there were people who have your back, basically, and the love you get from people. Those things are really important, and those things can help us with surviving, right? So because I know that there's something out there, there's somebody, who is rooting for me, and who I need to make proud, I will go on to do amazing things, and because I know somebody sponsored me to get into uni. I knew that I
Yeah.
had to be the best student, somehow to make them proud, and I could see those feelings when I was walking down the aisle, winning the best graduating student prize. People who supported were really proud of that moment, of that journey.
So
So
was it that purpose, right? Did you have like a very strong purpose at that point? Like, okay, I'm here for a reason. There's something I need to do. What was it that was holding you so strong towards what
actually,
you were doing?
actually, again, I would say, like, I really don't know, because people used to ask me, Ahmed, what sort of purpose do you have? Where did you find this kind of purpose?
Yeah.
How did you get this? And I'm like, it's just me wanting to be the best at what I do, or what I
Yeah.
choose to do at
Be the
times.
best at what you do.
Sometimes it's not like there's this overlaying, or there's this underlying purpose, or there's this deep-seated purpose that I have within myself. But I knew that there was a place I was coming from, and I knew that I
Yeah.
don't want to end in this kind of place. I knew that there was much more to life. I knew that there was more to an opportunity. I knew there was something ahead that I can't see, but I knew that the future is going to bright. Is going to be bright. I knew there's light at the end of the tunnel. So most times now that I work with like young refugees and asylum seekers, and when I
Yeah.
get a call and they are worried, I'm like, don't worry, it's going to be fine. There's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. And it's just that push. I knew there's something bigger. I can't see them. I can't see that thing
Yeah.
coming. I don't know when it will come. I don't know when those things would come, when it will come,
Yeah.
but I knew there was something. I knew there was something I was fighting for, right? I wasn't just fighting for my life. I was fighting for the life of my generation. And I knew I needed to do something. Like, I needed to, like, I don't want to end
I
this way.
love that. You were
This is
fighting
not
not just for yourself, you're
this is
fighting for
you
your
know,
generation.
one thing I used to tell people, that one of the greatest battles to fight is the battle of the mind. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you could easily fight
Definitely.
people and beat people, but it's difficult to beat the mind. It's difficult.
Yeah.
Fighting for you, like beating the mind. The mind will tell you that, oh, you need to give up now, you need to do this, you need to do different things,
Forget
but
about it. Just
you
walk
know,
away.
okay,
Yeah.
but you just have to, like, no, I'm gonna work this through. I'm going to crack through this. I'm going to break this barrier. I'm going to just, somehow just work my way through. And it's the way that I've been working. Like, even when I was in secondary school, and sometimes I don't get like the best results, even if I study really hard. I'm like, don't worry, Ahmed, move forward. You will crack it. It might not happen in secondary education, but maybe probably in university, you might be the best. Who knows? And
Yeah.
there was just that thing I was always like
So there
pushing.
was this personal conversation, right? This self-talk
Yeah.
with
Yeah. I,
yourself. And how important is that though? How important is that?
Yeah, I mean, in our life, every moment, every time, every day, we would continue to face challenges. There's never a state of convenience. I think that's something people need to know. The more you grow, the more you get
Yeah.
opportunity. It's not the time to say, "Oh, now I've arrived." There's never a state of
Yeah.
convenience. With convenience comes with inconvenience, and there's lots much more to do, to unravel, whenever you get to a point of like saying, I'm convenient enough, but there are some other challenges you need to fight. Your fight 2 years before your fight 2 years ago is different from your fight now. So you're
Correct.
fighting for new things, you're fighting for different things. So there's never a state of convenience, and it's you knowing that, it's you having those conversations with yourself, like, I've not arrived yet, like there's still much more to do, there's still lots more to do, and somehow it pushes us to move away from our comfort zone to get into a particular point. And that's why when you get rejected, right, from things, you're able to, like, live through some of those things. And for example, when I went through uni, became the best student, had the results, had everything, went for a national youth service and all,
Mm-hmm.
even even started an NGO based on my own experiences, based on my own story, to help children of my kind, to offer that support, to offer that career guidance, to be there, to just be that piece, in their own puzzle that they are trying to find. Children in rural communities, children who live in the kind of community that I've been raised in, just to support them, to be there for them. But I also wanted to do something for myself as well. I wanted to advance in my own life and my career as well, as I
Yeah.
continue to help
Yeah.
other people as well. As I
But
continue to.
when did that start though? When did that because if we look at what work you've done so far, right? If you look at all the work you're doing right now, whether
Mm,
it's with the British Red Cross or with the refugees, when did that community development what was that
interesting.
starting point?
Yeah.
Like that,
So,
that
so
click, like I want to work with people, I want to help
yeah,
people. When
yeah.
did that become concrete in your mind anyway?
So I'm always the person that whenever I know something, I want to like help other people as well. Like I want to pass on the knowledge. So when I got to know about this HIV and this thing, I was creating awareness about it. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just 14 years old, volunteering. And when I was 15, that was my first time in the educational sector. I taught. So I finished secondary education at the age of 15. And I started teaching in a basic school. I spent about 768 hours there teaching, basic literacy and numeracy skills, like teaching children in rural communities, because I was living in another rural community then. We moved from one rural, so before we even moved from a slum we're living in Bariga to another rural, very core rural community in Lagos, Ikorodu. We were chased away from the house. Like they were like, "Oh, you guys need to move away from this house." And that would have been the first time I would have been homeless. Like we didn't know where to go. There was no one to support. There was no family to support. It was one of the like our neighbor, like who said like, "Oh, you guys can come to live with us." And they actually built like a kind of uncompleted building. It's not yet completed. So they're like, maybe you guys can come and stay with us in this uncompleted building. In fact, there wasn't windows. Windows were covered with like, bags and so many other things like nylons, bulletins, and bags. The floor wasn't like tiled. It was just a normal floor, clay floor. We're just like managing the whole place. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
we made like we made a cooker with like clay, just to cook our meal. We would go, create sticks, like that place was even like a kind of new area. Nobody was living there. It was
Yeah.
like a outskirts of Lagos at the time. But we moved there, right? We're living there, and at that point there was a school there. So I got a teaching job there. So at the age of 15, I was teaching like, nursery class, and I was very young.
15.
Yeah, I was the youngest teacher in that school, like really young person. I didn't even know what I was doing. But,
I didn't know what you're doing.
and that was the time I even used my CV, right? I submitted my CV. I wrote
Yeah,
an
you had your CV, yeah, at
I had
13.
my CV. I had my WIEC results there. I wrote my application letter. So when you think about like cover letter, that was my first time of writing like a
And
kind of
where did you get all these ideas from at
yeah,
15?
wrote a kind of letter like, oh, this is me, this is who I am. I have already experience of speaking to students. Don't worry, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, writing what I would do in the school, right? So and as at then I was also working as a laborer. So I was
Mm,
working as a laborer, helping bricklayers, I would fetch water for bricklayers, I would pack sands, helping people because it was a new environment, and we're
correct.
also clearing bushes. So I was working both ways, I was teaching and I was doing that on the other side or the other end. Yeah, teaching, that was when I came to learn a lot about education. Like I also devised a kind of playway method to teach my kids, so I could recall like, whenever I want to like teach them spellings, I have to bring the objects, the real life objects, to show them like this is what it is, right? And teach
Mhm.
them. These are things like sometimes nature has a way of teaching us, right? So there are many ways of knowing. Somebody
Mhm.
asked me like, Ahmed, what are the ways of knowing? How do you get so much inspiration? I'm like, you need to pay attention to yourself. There are like many ways of knowing. In philosophy of education, I studied education in the uni. In philosophy of education, there are about 5 ways of knowing. One, you
Yeah.
can know through you can know through insights. So insights comes to you. So when they come, what do? You put them down. So when you engage in something, doing something, some insight comes to you, right? When you focus on doing something, there are some insight that comes naturally. When those insights come naturally, you put them down. They're part of knowledge. Through experiments. There are sometimes you just have to experiment and fail in something. So when you fail in something, you learn through those experimentation. And what does science means? Science learns through experimentation and observation. Even in early
Correct.
science, you learn through experimentation and observation. That's one way of knowing. Another way of knowing is that you know through rationale, like reasoning. You just have to
Yeah.
reason, logic kind of, your thinking. That's one way of knowing. Another way of knowing is that you know through authority. You go for study. If you want to get to know something about something, for example, when I feel like I'm interested in development, core development, I needed the knowledge. I went for a master's in international development, right? So if you really want to like know something, you want to be an authority in the field, you could go take a course, you could go, do a degree, to just be an authority in that field. That's one way also of knowing, and you also know through revelation, which is more spiritual kind of thing. But again, this happens through like engagement with things, and through relationship, through kind of relational learning, whereby when you interact with people, when you share knowledge, when you hear from people, when you observe people, kind of relationship. These are multiple ways of knowing. And then when we tap into those multiple ways of knowing, inspiration comes in. And then you always have something to share. So for me, during those moments, I never knew I was tapping into those ways of knowing. I was just like doing my
Correct.
things. I
You're
was
just doing your
learning
thing, right?
I was learning playway methods, learning different kind of methods to teach some of the kids. And I could recall when I was leaving that school, because at that point my dad and said, "Hey, it's enough. Like this guy is suffering a lot. Like come and live with us." They were trying to save me from the environment. Like come and live with us. And I could recall when I was leaving, I saw the children, the parents of my kids crying. Like, oh, you've really tried. They used to call me uncle. You've really tried. And I was just 15 at that age, right? Moving. And I could also recall when I started living with my dad that I picked another job as a KYC agent, as a SIM registration entrant. So I was registering SIMs. When they started registering SIM in Nigeria, we were one of the first people that started it. I was one of the first people. I was just 16 at the time, 16, 17 at the time. First set of people who registered SIM were there. I was working with Airtel, the telecommunication company,
Yeah.
as like kind of, yeah, I was working as an agent, KYC
It,
agent.
it tells you, right? Don't despise small beginnings,
Yeah,
like
like
where you
those are
started.
those are those are really like great, really great moment, and the experiences. So if I'm telling somebody that I have 12 years of experience in all of these things, like yes, I do. I mean, I've started like quite early enough learning,
Very young. And
having
you have your resume to prove it, right?
I
Your
I don't
CV.
even have some of those things into my resume anymore,
Do
because
you do you still, I mean, do you still
there's
have
no
that
even
resume?
there's no even space to put those things. Basically, where do I want to put them in? There
But do
are
you
other.
still have it? Do you still have that CV?
I
That
don't have it.
13-year
I
old?
do. Probably my dad would have kept it somewhere, because he used to keep some of those things, then. So probably might I might still have it in one of the folders back home somewhere. Maybe
You should take it
maybe
and
yes.
frame it up, you know. You should take it
Yeah,
and frame it up.
yeah, maybe somehow he might have kept it somewhere. But yeah, even my letters, then I could require to save those letters that I've written for applications, when I was really,
Yeah.
really, really, really young. But again, those were the experiences, those were the journey. Going through uni, having through those journey, those experiences, education being that thing that made a difference for me. I believe that children who are facing similar circumstances needs those such support, need such guidance, right? And that's what inspired the kind of work that I do, and that's
So
why I
Hamid,
started the NGO on the
you
premise that with
at
access
one
to okay,
mhm.
yeah,
At,
like
sorry, at one point in your experience, right? I'm not sure whether this was high school or whether this was when you were heading towards uni. But I think while you were in Nigeria, you left the country to go to Ghana.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
Can you talk to us about that? So
interesting.
Hamid, just to give you a background, right? Hamid goes for this Ghana summit. Tell us, like, how did you even? So at what age was it? You now
Yeah,
leaving to
yeah. That was
another
that was that
country?
was
Yeah, this is another country.
Yeah, that was after my uni. It was after my uni, and it was after I started my NGO. Because when you start an NGO as a young person, right? You need knowledge, you need skills, you need resources, you need to meet people, you need network. And I was applying for so many opportunities, and I was getting rejected in all of those opportunities. I could recall that year I got like almost 13 over 13 rejections. I think about 15 rejections that year. And I could also recall that getting all of those rejections from those applications. I could recall also getting annoyed to take, like, I think I took about 15 online courses within 3 days. because I just wanted to learn, and I was just so angry,
Upgrade, right? Yeah.
I just wanted to learn, and so I said, well, if these fully funded opportunities aren't coming, you could go for the ones that are funded, that you have to fund yourself, that are self-funded. So I came across this African ECG Summit in Ghana, and I applied for like a partial. I got a partial scholarship, and yeah, a partial scholarship of $100 as at then. And as at then, I was working at the factory to also support myself and to support my NGO. And at the factory, they were paying me less than, I think, about $100 as at then. No, not less than $100 as at then. 20,000 naira. It was less than $100. So I pulled up the money together to pay for the registration fee of $100. But now it's, I need to get to Ghana. How do I
Yeah.
get to Ghana? So
And it's not near, is it? Ghana is not near.
so I couldn't fly. There weren't any organization sponsoring me. I was sponsoring myself. Um, well, the sponsors already did a great job by covering, for our accommodation, and also getting arrangements for lunch and breakfast arranged by the hotel. So I needed to, like, get to Ghana. How, so I got some of the money I also saved from my factory work. I traveled to Ghana. I had money to go. I didn't have money. I didn't have money to return, but I went
Mm.
anyways. Uh,
So wait, hold on, hold on. So you're telling us that you went to a completely different country. You've never been there before? Never?
yeah, by
It's your
road,
first time
by road.
leaving your country. First
Yeah,
time.
and I traveled by road. I
And
traveled
you
by
traveled
road.
by road.
Yes. Yeah,
And you didn't have
I have
funds to
money to.
come home.
Yeah, I have. While I was going, I have money. I have no money to come back.
And did you know anyone in Ghana at that time?
Nobody. Nobody. I'm like, well, these are some of the risks you take for your life and career. And I went to
Mm,
Ghana. I could recall getting to Ghana at night, really midnight, and I went to the hotel, and I'm like, okay, yeah, is there any arrangements for feeding or anything that was made for me? And I had no money anymore, with me, and they were like, no arrangements, there's like no arrangements. And I woke up the next morning, so I slept hungry. Woke up the next morning and I saw like two slices of bread and hot dog and I'm like, oh no, I can't. Well, I mean, what, two slices of bread? How? Where do I start from? I'm really hungry, but I ate it that way, and I got to the event hungry, But I was like showing up. They would say, "Oh, want to talk about this?" I'll raise up my hand. Like I was always showing up at every moment at that event, and one person saw me and be like, "Oh, what do you do?" And that's why sometimes you need to like have what you do. You need to know it. Like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I run an NGO and all of this. And the person said, oh, there's an opportunity I want to connect you with. So uh, when I got back, the person actually like sent me an application to become an SDGU champion, and I applied, for the SDGU champion, and the person also spoke for me behind the closed doors without knowing, and I got selected and I went to South Africa, all expense paid, as an SDGU champion, and I was supposed to like, I traveled, flew. That was the first time I was
that must
flying.
have been a relief after
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to fund
But
yourself.
but again, before that time or before that period, people would ask, like anytime I tell the story, people would ask me, like, Hamid, how did you come back home? How did you return, from Ghana? It dawned on me on the last day of the summit that I have no money to come back. So I was like,
Yeah.
I got to the hotel, turned on the Wi-Fi of the hotel. I started calling every single person, like, please, back home. Like I was calling my aunts, everybody. So there was one of my aunts that actually supported me, and they
Mm.
sent me like money to go back home. So I booked the trip using um um an app on my phone, using the hotel Wi-Fi quickly, book my bus. So when I booked my bus, I got to the bus station and I missed my bus,
Oh
and I had no
my.
money in another man's land. So where do I go from? What do I do? So I was just there, in Ghana, and I'm like, so they said there was an empty bus going back to Nigeria, but we have to be small good with shoes. Like it's an empty bus, but we have to be small good, and at every border you have to trek distance to cross the border. You walk through, yeah, you always walk through the border, but they will park really far away and will trek distance. So I got into the bus. I'm like, I can't stay. Where do you want me to stay? I can't stay in another man's land, me and one other lady. And that's how we got in. And midnight, we're like crossing borders midnight, right?
And how old were you at this time?
I think I was just I think I have some level of restraint. I was 23. Yeah, yeah, so we're crossing, we're crossing, borders to borders. And I could recall one, we crossed like a kind of bridge, at that point, one of the borders when we were crossing from Benin Republic border to Nigeria. There was a bridge we passed when we crossed, but they call it Badagry Bridge, across. And I'm like, what if somebody takes me and throw me into the water, or something happens, like they would ask me, who sent you to this summit? Why did you go? When like you've gone through these
I
challenges,
mean,
why
were
would you?
you what was going on in your mind? Why were you
I
scared?
mean, one. This is like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., midnight. Walking through that border and just crossing, but I had a conviction. And when I came back home, I posted picture. I attended the summit, blah blah blah. And people were like, congratulations, but they never knew what went behind the scene.
You
And
didn't. You didn't. You didn't.
three, 3 nights in that summit, there wasn't dinner provided. So 3 nights in that summit, I didn't eat. I was sleep hungry. You know, but again, you know that I learned a lot. I attended different breakout rooms. I would take notes. I would learn about the SDGs. I would learn about developments. I would engage people who knows better than me, in the development space. I was building connection and I was building network, right? And that led to the South African trip that was all expense paid. So which got me opportunity to learn about social research, and got me an opportunity to work on a research. Then we call it the citizens report. And we're collecting data across different communities in 3 regions in Nigeria. And the outcome of that research, we presented it to the office of the Senate President. And that was my first time at the National Assembly in Nigeria, engaging the office of the Senate President. These are things that happened because of that trip. And I share some of these things in my applications, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to fight for your
Everything
life.
led you there.
Yeah,
Everything led you
so
there.
again,
Every moment.
is that piece of the puzzle again, one piece, bringing those pieces together. And these are some of the stories you share in your application, some of those challenges, some of those wins, some of those setbacks. These are some of the things you probably would share in your application. And there are still many, many, many components to every of those stories. There are still many pieces of those stories that are yet to be unraveled, basically. But yeah, I knew there was something. I knew there was something. I knew I wanted something more. And I knew I wouldn't get that from just sitting back home. And during those moments, I applied for the Carrington Youth Fellowship. It's a program of the U.S. Consulate in Lagos. We're just 20 that were selected, and I also got into that program. There was those belief. When I even went for the interview of the Carrington Youth Fellowship, I had people who were well dressed. People were well dressed. I was coming from my own rural community, dirty with my jean and my blazers, but I didn't care. I'm like, I don't care. Whatever. It's what I want to say that matter. It's not about the dress. Sometimes I was outside and I was like worried, like, oh, look at these people wear dress, come in their Uber, and I was coming on a bike. I'm like, oh no, people came in Uber and I was coming in bike. I'm like, oh no, would they select me in my dirty jean and my dirty shoes? And oh boy, well, I'm like, Hammed, it's not what you wear that matter, it's what you want to say. So go in there and just speak your mind,
So
speak your
Hamid
truth.
was Hamid's best friend.
Yeah, obviously, yes. At that point, sometimes we need
Yeah.
ourselves. The truth is that human beings, we are made to survive. Sometimes we go through pains to survive. There's an hormone in the body that is built for survival, the endorphin. You can go through pain, and then
You go
it's
through
for
anything,
that.
yeah.
It helps. Again, some level of dopamine is also good. When you win something, the goal, when you set a goal and you win, it's dopamine, right? It gets you to another thing. It gets you through another thing. It gets you through another
You
thing.
do what you have to do when you have to
But,
do it.
but but the truth is that
Yeah.
too much of it isn't good. Like again, it could lead to stress. It could lead to fatigue. It could lead to
Correct.
like the other side as well, right? So the balance of everything, and the balance comes from like having conversation with self, right? So there were so many things I would probably love to say, but to share. But the truth is that sometimes you have to fight for your life. Sometimes people would help you. People will be there to help you, but sometimes you also have to help yourself.
Yeah.
And when people see that you're close to succeeding, they're always willing to support. People are
Yeah.
always willing to start. The truth is that one of my friend would say something. He says success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. So when you're trying to get into a point, because you're successful, you're close to being successful, you see people who are rally
Correct.
around you, you see people who would want to support you. And the truth is that Paulo Coelho also said something. Then I was reading a lot of books as well, just to get me going. Watch a lot of book, watch a lot of videos as well, just to get me going. um, because I mean, there were pains, but I needed something to keep me going. So I could recall I read the Alchemist as then, and Paulo Coelho said something that is really really powerful, and that is really really instrumental. He said, when you truly want something, when you truly truly desire something, the whole world will conspire in your favor towards achieving them. You know,
I believe in that as well.
yeah. So somehow, when I know that this is where I want to be, this is where I want to go to, somehow, those all of these stories, like I was called back to the African UCGC Summit to come and speak in the second year. I was a speaker and a panelist, right? And I didn't have the experience I had the first time. Even if I still traveled by road, but it was smooth. I was well prepared. I was well, I already knew, like, oh, this was the experience. I wouldn't want to go through some experience again. By God's platform, I spoke, met people, and I shared this in my application when I was applying for scholarships, right? I shared some of this, and I got an opportunity to speak to people, to share my story, to tell them the story of the work that I do, right? To advocate for education. So some of the things, some of this journey connect together, and we need to know sometimes you need to sacrifice you need to sacrifice to
Yeah.
get what you want. Sometimes you just need to fight for your life to get what you want, and you need to reflect on your journey. You need to document those stories, and you need to learn how to communicate them. So when I see people saying, coming to me, that I don't, the truth is that you need to learn some of these skills. Being able to write your own story. I'm not the best person to write. Like I'm not really good at in the beginning. I'm not a great writer. I didn't start as a great writer or something, but I practiced over the years. I'll keep writing stories, whether even if they are good or bad. I could recall when I was in the uni, I shared a story, pasted it on the wall. People went circling all the errors. I didn't feel bad. Yeah, that happens. I didn't give up. It didn't stop me from still writing, or it didn't stop me from still sharing. But again, you learn over time. I could recall sometimes I will share on social media, somebody will come into my inbox and be like, oh, there was an error there, here and there. And I'm like, yeah, thank you very much. I will go back and correct it. That's fine. That's okay. It's good to
Yeah.
make mistakes, right? But when you don't put something out there because you're thinking of what people would say, you might not get to,
Yeah.
to that level you.
You're afraid to fail and you don't want to try.
So at the point in time, people got tired of correcting me, because again, people,
Yeah.
you get to a point, people will focus on the message instead of the error.
Correct.
When you start, sharing, and those were there were a lot of growing moments, the ability to write, to share, the ability to be able to tell your story, the ability to tell a convincing story, to get people to support you, to get a scholarship, right? You need to learn all of those things. So when somebody is trying to contract somebody for something, to write your own personal statement or to write your story for you, I'm wondering why. You need to learn through the cracks at times. If you want
Yeah.
to get what you want, you need to go through that cracks. You need to carefully learn. Those things are part of learning. If you don't learn how to write a ordinary personal statements or write an application, then how do you want to conduct an academic research?
Correct.
you know or how do you want to write, critique a paper or write a paper, or even speak through your findings or what you have. Those things are part of lessons. They are part of life. You need to, and that's why I wrote, like, people. It's not that people probably know, like, this is like this is where they would be, or
Hmm.
this is where they would end up being. But the truth is that people just do it afraid. They just go through the cracks. They learn through the work. They learn through the ropes. And those things are preparing you for something. They are preparing you for, like, an interview where they will ask you a question, and what you need to do is to look back on your experience and share, and then get the
Yeah.
job. You know, these are things that happen. Our lives are connected. It's a puzzle. It's a jigsaw, all connected together, right? And and for me, as I continue to, like, run an NGO to help other people, to help those children, to support them, I was also completing a part of my puzzle, where I want to
Yeah.
be, where I want to go, my journey. I was also becoming, the fact that you're even helping somebody, the joy of that alone keeps you alive, keeps you going. You could sleep knowing that somebody's life is better because of you, right?
Definitely.
So there's a whole lot more. Like, if we continue to unravel the story, I wouldn't stop here. There are many pieces of those stories, basically.
Very, 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 very compelling. Definitely, I think your stories, your different stories, tells us so much about what we can do and how we can grow within our circumstances. It's just whether we want to, like you said, right? There's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You either do or you don't, and you just sit there stagnant and not move. Uh, Hamid, we are at the end of our show. We only have 6 minutes left, unfortunately. There's so much more I would love to cover today, but we don't have time. But maybe one last question is, right. Tell us about the Coyote Aliabi leadership initiative that you have, and the career
Yeah,
initiative, right? Where
yeah,
uh, where where do you see it going at the moment, and what kind of help do you need? So
yeah.
maybe if one person, just one person, watches this, and uh, they have something that they can help you with. I mean, what would you guys need?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I mean, it's still a growing NGO, still growing, and again, it was founded based on my experience that with access to education, opportunities, and skills, children in
Mm-hmm.
rural communities can change their circumstances. And and one thing we've seen that some of the children that we've supported, the boot camp we run to help them, build their skills. Some of those trainings we offer them is not enough. They need more
Definitely.
support. They need they want to study, they want to further, they want to get into uni. They need constant mentoring. Apart from that mentoring, they need funding, they need money. So I mean, I've done so many fundraising, like trying to raise money for some of these children. Sometimes it's my own even personal resources goes into it. But again, it's that experience that I want to be a piece of their jigsaw. I want to be, I want to support them. I want to be part of their jigsaw puzzle. And I'm inviting people to be that piece as well, by sponsoring a child. So we're going to be starting the boot camp again this year. And we're going to be releasing like a kind of fundraising campaign very soon. So people can donate. And we are releasing that fundraising campaign with also a kind of like creating a scholarship trust fund, because beyond the boot camp, these children still need support. They need to get into
Yeah,
uni. They need to
definitely.
like cross. They need to write exams. And it's not even about writing the exams. Sometimes you think like, oh, it's about paying for a child exam. It's beyond that.
Yeah, yeah,
The tutoring, the lessons that they get, the transportation to even get to the tutorial center, the
yeah.
transportation to get to the place they want to
Things
write
you
their.
might not think about, right?
Those things happens. They happen. I see
But
them.
how do people contact you?
Yeah, I
How
mean,
how, how do they find out?
yeah, we yeah, obviously we have our website, but we also have like an account where people can actually donate to. Yeah, and we would be starting this appeal, so there will be a link to a GoFundMe that people can donate to support, one child. And one of the things is that we are creating this trust fund to like, instead of like coming out every day to raise these funds, we are you know we are trying to create a trust fund where when the children come to say like, oh, I need your support, we can pull out of those funds to like, sponsor their education. Basically, again, somebody took a chance on me, and I need to
Yeah,
take a chance on people. Even for the master's program, somebody took a chance on me to study at the University of Edinburgh, which is, Mastercard Foundation took a chance on me. So it's
yeah.
it's for me to also like, look at my own, reflect on
And
my
the
own,
same for others. Yeah,
reflect on my own position of power and privilege, basically to pass the baton down to support others. And it doesn't have to be 8,000 child or 3,000 child or 5,000 child. Even if it's just one person, that's enough. The
yeah,
fact that I'm seeing one person growing, sometimes it's good to say that I've done 50,000, I've done 100,000, but the joy of seeing one person, just one single person, grow to change their circumstances, that's the joy of giving. It's good to give, but when we give with the intention that the people we are giving would remain the same so that we can continue to give them, then we are not giving. We need to give with the intention that the people we are giving can change their circumstances, transform their
definitely.
family, transform themselves,
Completely.
and become givers themselves. That's what true change means.
Definitely.
And that's the direction the work is going through. It's more of like, supporting one-on-one support, true one-on-one support for
Definitely.
young people, helping them truly, following them through, changing their circumstances. And we have like three currently young people in the unit, which is really amazing. And some people also
That's
going through
amazing.
going through that process. So yeah,
So
somebody
Hamid,
asked, I'm based in the UK. Yes, I'm based in the UK. Let
if
me just.
you look at the comment, right? So CJ Johnson is actually from Nigeria as well. She's based in the UK. She's a very good friend of mine. I love her to bits.
Yeah,
You guys should actually meet and talk. She's
yeah,
based in the UK as well.
based in the
Location
UK.
wise in the UK, probably you all need to connect on LinkedIn. I
Yeah,
will share your contact with her if that's okay with you,
yeah, that's
and
that's
maybe you guys can talk and see
yeah,
how you guys can work together.
yeah,
So she says
yeah.
if you are, let's talk. And
Yeah,
she's
definitely.
asking a lot more questions, which I think we'll take it offline.
Yeah, yeah,
So
sure. Yeah.
anyway, thanks to everyone who tuned in today to listen to Hamid's story. And he's such an inspirational person, very young, and he's got like, how many books do you have, Hamid?
So,
Two. Moving on to the third one, it's going to be on jigsaw puzzles, right? So
yeah,
if you guys want to know more about Hamid, please follow him on LinkedIn. He's also on IG, all right, Instagram for those of us that are much older, right? He's on Instagram, and check out his page, and you'll be able to get more information about the sponsoring child as well, right, Hamid? You'll be able
yeah,
to contact.
yeah, yeah,
Contact Hamid directly if you are able to help in any way to sponsor a child or to talk about collaboration and things like that. Okay. So anyway, thank you to everyone. Good night. Anything else, Hamid? Do you want to say to anyone listening?
yeah. It's an opportunity to share. There's really, really nothing I want to say is that, yeah, we are all living jigsaws, trying to be a piece in other people's lives. So, again, I don't want everything. I don't want to be everything. I just want to be a jigsaw, in the life
Yeah.
of one child. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Good night, everyone. I'll see you backstage.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night, guys. Bye bye.